Hello, aren't you guys nice? And I'm sure, I'm Elizabeth Daley, I'm the Dean of the School of Cinematic Arts here. I know most of you, I think. And this is our wonderful guest, Stephanie Hsu.
Hello.
Who I think most of you definitely already know her credits. I think they were in the program, so we're really honored to have you today. It means a lot. You know, I'm interested. I know you've spent the last few years of your life in New York, but you grew up here. And we were just talking about both having spent a lot of time in New York, but there's something about California that always strikes me as different in terms of our relationship to the land, our relationship to the environment. And I'd just love to hear what differences you find.
Well, one of my favorite things to do in LA, and I did this a lot during COVID, and it was stealing. No, it was foraging for foods in people's yards, especially during COVID. You know, it was like our cups runneth over. Kumquats, loquats, we're talking mulberries, figs, avocados, spruce tips, you know, lemons, Meyer lemons, just so much abundance in this climate. And I think that, you know, part of the joy of Southern California is being able to like integrate a life with the abundances of nature, good and bad, of course.
Yeah, good and bad. But yes, I've always been struck by the fact that the land here is very alive. It's almost like it's not quite finished. I mean, obviously you're working in one of the most powerful media in the world, no matter what anybody says. And we get very upset if anybody says it's just entertainment. We think that's pretty important. But, you know, I'd love to hear your perspective on how Hollywood is involved. What do you think the messages are? You know, I look back at a film like An Inconvenient Truth, and you would get people saying, can Hollywood really change anything? And you go, well, there was an inconvenient truth, and it certainly seemed to be a wake-up call. But are you seeing anything in your own career that's pointing to an interest in or a concern for the environmental crisis we're facing?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's a lot more media right now that is starting to lean into the wildness. There was The Wild Robot last year. Adam McKay is a huge climate activist, and honestly, like, it keeps him up at night. And he directed Don't Look Up, along with Anchorman. But it is definitely like he wants to use the medium as a means of communicating this very immediate, necessary emergency that we are inside of. And I often think about one of my favorite stories about movie subliminal messaging is when they were trying to get people to wear seatbelts. They asked Hollywood basically to incorporate the act of putting a seatbelt in their movies. So it wasn't even like there was a movie called Seatbelts, but it was just the fact that people would get into their car and then they would go like this, and it would start to encourage people to, you know, use seatbelts. And I think that there can be a lot more that storytellers can do to, you know, speckle in subliminal messaging. I feel like we're still kind of living in a world where everything's good and dandy, and as we know, they're not as good and dandy as we'd like to think. So yeah, I'm excited for ways that we can be sneaky about making things generative and communicating in a way that actually acknowledges the world that we're living inside of.
I love your comment, making things sneaky, because I think that, you know, that's what you see over and over, is that the power of film and television and other media is putting things in people's minds undercover, so to speak, and then they remember it. But how was it to play the role you played? I mean, Vantra is truly a completely amoral character, and I'd just love to know how you deal with that. I think the audience, has everybody seen
The Wild Robot.
The Wild Robot?
It's
Okay.
a very special movie, especially for moms, I feel. Yeah, I think people like it when I'm evil. I think it's because I'm so tiny. I don't know, that there's some push-pull to it. But I think you, in a weird way, with Everything Everywhere too, playing a sort of villain, but also daughter, I think you have to actually be deeply empathic and feel a lot of feelings in order to access the most evil parts of oneself, which that's a conversation for another time, but makes me ask a lot of questions about people who I think are evil and wonder what they feel. Maybe nothing. I don't know. Everything, I'm monologuing. Next.
No. Please go ahead, because I think that is the question. Do people feel anything?
Well, I mean, I think we are very not to use general statements, but I do think with, blah, 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 social media, blah, 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 phones, apps, whatever, we are sort of becoming more and more disconnected from each other, and that's why spaces, seeing a movie in a theater is so important. Seeing theater, being here, not like live streaming this, although thank you for anyone who's, I don't know if this is being live streamed, but it's like feeling our bodies in space just reminds us of our literal chemical humanness. Yeah, and I feel like actually I was talking to the Nature Conservancy girls about this, climate and advocacy and emergency are all these very these words that can become abstracted really quickly. And where is the space where we can feel the chemical love and excitement and humanness of I want to save this tree that I have known for my whole life, or whatever, where is our relationship to the land in a way that is more tactile and fucking juicy, and can we cultivate that so that our desperation or our desire to protect is from a place of love as opposed to administrative. I mean, that is important too, bless. Obviously, I'm not good at Excel, but anyway, yeah, but how can we cultivate that kind of environment and language and true relationship to the elements around us? And will that change our ability and our capacity to fight? I think so.
Yeah, bravo.
That's what I'm practicing. Yeah.
Well, but I think you raise a real point about being together and everything. I wonder, you hear a lot of objections to too much screen time, but maybe it's just what's on the screens.
Yeah.
Too, because, yeah. When you see a film that really brings the environment in front of you, what other films have you liked that you thought might have touched on the environment or touched on our need to save this fragile little planet that we have?
I really do love Don't Look Up so much.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all have seen it. And
Has anybody seen Don't Look Up? Yeah, if you haven't, do see it.
I also just recently watched, this was kind of like lo-fi, My Octopus Teacher, but I did watch, I do love My Octopus Teacher, although I do have questions also. He's literally in love with that octopus, which is juicy. I guess is what I'm supporting. But I did also recently watch Me and My Otter, which is another Nat Geo movie.
Yes.
And I loved it so much. I don't know. I think actually, okay, interesting. They're both about really falling in love with something alive and nurturing it. I did want to mention one little thing that you talked about earlier, which was sneakiness. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite authors. Do y'all know Adrienne Marie Brown? Yeah, she is everything. Emergent Strategy. If you haven't read it, you must, especially if you're a nature nerd. Her biggest thing that she talks about is biomimicry, which is basically about studying patterns and hierarchy in nature and using it as an inspiration to create social systems in our lives. And one thing she always says is small is part of the all, which I really love, because I think that what is in front of us is so daunting that it can feel like, at least for me, if we can't fix it all, then you can't fix it. And that there's every opportunity is such a sneaky opportunity, us even being here, to create new ripples and plant new seeds of change and conversation and expanding our minds and our ability to move forward.
Yeah, I was very intrigued by this conference because it did seem to offer a chance to begin to plant those seeds with young people at an earlier age. But I wonder how do you think young people feel today when they look at where things are going in terms of the environment? I hear a lot of depression. I'm wondering if you know, in talking to them, what do you hear? What do you feel?
Am I sad? Are people sad? Figure it out. No, yeah, it's so scary. I hear, well, it's funny, you're asking specifically about young people.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the, high school kids that obviously come and admire your movies, that watch your movies. I mean, Wild Robot, I don't know a single parent in the 40 to 50-year-old age group and below that hasn't read this to their kids. I mean, it is the kind of text.
Well, young people, I find it's very humbling. I mean, I am no old crow, but that's the first time I've ever said that, old crow. You can have it. It's good. I am no old crow, but when I do work with students or young people, I'm so immediately humbled. I know there's like a bunch of educators in this room too, because they have no choice. Their whole future is in front of them, so they have no choice to figure out or imagine or hope for new possibilities. And that is such a reality check for me always, because it's so easy to know too much and feel how daunting it is. But when you have, these minds who have not been told no over and over, you just remember that actually there's so much possible still, and there has to be. It's inevitable. We have to figure it out somehow.
Why did you want to be in Wild Robot?
Yeah, I was asked.
It's always in our business, that's always a good reason. But, I mean, it was a choice, and obviously coming off an Oscar, you had choices.
Yeah. Well, Chris Sanders, the director, directed Lilo and Stitch also, and that was one of my favorite movies growing up, which also is very about nature, I guess. That's why I'm here. But I loved the story. I loved this. I actually thought, I'm underplaying it a little bit. The story is amazing. I mean, to really create a kid's story that's about the relationship of technology and wildness and nature in a way that's not like one is bad, one is good, but really integrate the two. I feel like I needed that lesson, because I am like, don't give me a phone. I don't want to, whatever. I will stand in front of a flower and watch it bloom for hours ad infinitum. So I am not like super into technology, but here we are. The Pandora's box has been open, and so we have to figure out a way to be in right relationship to it. And I think it's really special that that story exists for kids and for young people and for us.
Yeah. I think it was a very, very powerful movie, and especially, I mean, I have staff who have kids, second, third grade. They've all read it. They've all been there, and you probably get a different message at every era of your life. But I was intrigued by the fact that you chose to do it. Yeah. So, what other projects are you looking at? What kind of projects would you like to be doing?
Well, I am developing a lot more of my own sneaky stuff. So that's mostly what I'm up to currently. Hmm.
Any particular themes or anything that you would
Yeah,
want to share?
I think the one that I would want to share is that, I mean, I'll say it abstractly instead. I do believe that, yeah, if you have a voice or storytelling or whatever, that it is I was taught that this is something to hold with care. And so any ways in which you can disrupt or liberate through your artwork, even if it's sneaky and a comedy or whatever, is something that is that you owe it to your audiences and the community around you to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully said. Yeah, there's a plaque on the street in New York, probably you've seen it, on 41st Street, just up from the library. And I can't remember the author's name. There's all the quotes that go down that street. And this one says, "The world is made of stories, not of atoms." And I think telling stories is one of the most important things we can do.
You know what movie I also really love that I just watched for the first time? I know, embarrassing, is Interstellar. Have you
Yes.
seen Interstellar? Oh my gosh. Well, it was actually wild to watch it 10 years after it was 15. I think it was 15 years after it was made, because it is so topical. It is not only, I mean, there's like a dust bowl happening, there's no water, like they're going through a climate crisis. But I feel actually that we're also entering an era. Has anyone listened to the telepathy tapes? Okay. Oh, you have? Yeah. Also highly recommend this podcast, the telepathy tapes. But art is a sort of subliminal messaging, and I feel like we're moving into an era where there's a lot of like other consciousness that is going to be a little bit more in flow. Just watch Interstellar again. Watch the bookshelf, book library scene. And the biggest lesson I got from that movie was, oh, we're the ones coming to save us. Like, no one's coming to save us. We are the ones coming to save us. So all the clues that we have, or all the like gut feelings that we have in the world of Interstellar, are actually just like other parts of ourselves that are trying to like push us out the door. Yeah. Such a good.
It's a very powerful movie if you haven't seen it.
So good.
I highly recommend it.
So good.
And the wonderful thing, a few years ago, you may have seen it, there was a list done of all of the things that have been talked about in films and how many of them had actually come true. So, and Interstellar, I think, is very much in there. The other thing I've been recommending to people is go back and read Animal Farm if you haven't read it since high school.
Yeah. Nonfiction.
Well, there is a reason, I think, and it sounds like you would agree, that one of the things autocrats try desperately to do whenever they take over is to stop storytelling and to critique it, because the power is so great. I mean, I think probably the work you do, I often talk about actors who take on roles like this is almost like shaman or priest, or that take on a way of talking to the community. And
Totally.
so was there anything else you want people to think about? What motivates you to get out of bed in the morning?
Right now, there's a fiddlehead fern in my room that is unfurling. You know, when it like starts to sprout and it's like twisted up and it like and unfurls. That helps me. Well, okay, I will. So after, the inauguration. Oh, wait, no, after the election. Not sure what your views are, but those are mine. I was scheduled to go on a camping trip, and I was up in Big Sur. I mean, like, I'm getting emotional thinking about it now. I was so scared, so sad, am so scared, so sad. And I was in Big Sur in a little cove called Whale Cove, and I'm really into whales. And I was eating breakfast and looking out at the horizon and wondering, oh, well, I wonder, if I could see a whale at Whale Cove. And this was literally the day after the election. And I saw a megapod migration of whales.
Oh.
It was wild. It was so wild. It was like, you just see one, and then all of a sudden the entire horizon was just like for hours. And it was their migrating season. I think it was humpbacks and gray whales going south. And, there are moments like that where I am really humbled by the greatness of things, which is that, like, there are these ancient creatures that without, an iPhone can go back to the same place every single year to, have a family and know how to get there. And that is a type of wisdom that we actually haven't even tapped into yet. And it's like poetic and cute and whatever, but actually it's real. Like, that is something that is like atomically real amongst us. And so what we are capable of, we have not even tapped into. And those are, my higher moments when I can really plug into that. It just helps me not sit in the stew, because it's actually such an important time for innovation, I think, and just not even in terms of new gadgets, but new ways of thinking and how we communicate about all the very real realities that we're inside of. And then there's a Rebecca Solnit quote that is amazing. And I only know the first sentence by heart, but it was also published the day after the election. And I don't know why I'm saying it like that. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know who you are.
You're at a university.
I mean, look at me. Obviously, well, anyway, okay. So the quote is, "The fact that we cannot save everything does not mean that we cannot save anything. And anything we can save is worth saving." And I love that. I love that so much. It just makes it so much right in the palm of your hand in a way that is like, okay. So Megapod, Whales, and Rebecca Solnit.
I think that quote is a wonderful thing for certainly the educators in the room to be able to carry back to young people, because I think we often see them going, well, what can I do?
There's more to it too.
Yeah.
The rest of it is really special.
Yeah. So highly recommend it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know we are out of time and you've had a very, very long day, but thank all of you for coming.
Thanks for being here.
I think it's wonderful.
And thank you all for doing what you do, because you definitely do really important, special work for all of it. And so, yeah, I just want to shower y'all with gratitude, even though I don't know you individually. Yeah, thanks for doing whatever you're doing. Yeah.